Mangwana ni Malelepo Vukenjani Klekwas. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, your portal into Africa's potent stories. From Donald Trump's controversial call for possible U.S. military action in Nigeria to Tanzania's turbulent election aftermath under President Samia Suluhu Hassan, today's episode dives deep into power, protest, and resilience across the continent. We examine SADC's rare rebuke of Tanzania's polls, Cameroon's opposition crisis, and the humanitarian horror unfolding again in Sudan's Darfur. We also spotlight innovation in South Africa, where technology meets activism, and explore Africa's economic and cultural frontiers through the IFC's new investment strategy and Ghana's global stand for Kente. Don't miss Talent Kore's Zimbabwe report with this week's biggest headlines from current affairs to sport. This is Africa Good Morning. Watch us on DSTV 25, GoTV 25, ntv-africa.my.na, and NTV Africa on YouTube. That's Africa with a K. My name is Ashwin Bedi. Top story shortly.
Life is unpredictable, and one needs to be protected against any eventuality. Get Santam legal access from as little as $50 Namibian a month for when you find yourself in need of legal representation due to civil cases, criminal prosecution, and family matters such as divorce, child maintenance, and custody. It also covers labor disputes, disciplinary hearings, and unfair dismissal or retrenchment. With Santam Legal Access, you'll receive free legal advice on almost every legal aspect, whether the specific matter is covered by your policy or not. For true peace of mind and legal protection when you need it most, call us on 061 292 8000. Santam. This is freedom.
U.S. President Donald Trump has directed the Department of War to prepare for possible military action in Nigeria, accusing the government of failing to protect Christians from Islamist militants. Trump warned that unless Nigeria acts, he might send U.S. forces guns a-blazing and cut all aid to what he termed the now disgraced country. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed the department was preparing for action, saying either Nigeria must protect Christians or the U.S. would kill the Islamic terrorists. Nigeria's presidential advisor Daniel Bwala welcomed support but stressed the nation's sovereignty, noting jihadists had attacked people of all faiths. President Bola Tinubu maintained that Nigeria remains religiously tolerant. Trump declared Nigeria a country of particular concern for alleged threats to Christians, despite reports showing both Christians and Muslims have been victims of violence. He claimed thousands were killed but gave no evidence. Bola described Trump's comments as well-intentioned and said Nigerians were not taking them literally, adding he hoped Trump and Tinubu would meet soon. Trump reiterated the U.S. could deploy troops or airstrikes to stop the alleged killings. Moving on. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has been sworn in for a second term under heavy security following an election marked by violence and opposition rejection. Declared winner with 98% of the vote, her rivals were either jailed or disqualified. The inauguration, closed to the public but aired on state TV, took place at a military ground in Dodoma. Reports indicate hundreds killed and many missing during unrest amid a nationwide internet blackout. Samia thanked the Electoral Commission for its efficiency and lamented the loss of lives. Police blamed foreign nationals for the violence as Kenyans were reported missing. International leaders, including Pope Leo, the EU's Kaja Kallas, and UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, voiced concern. The ruling CCM party retained dominance. Opposition leaders Tundu Lissu and Luhaga Mpina were barred. Amnesty had warned of repression before the vote, which officials insisted was free and fair. But this is the SADC response. The SADC Electoral Observation Commission, led by Malawi's former Speaker Richard Msowoya, concluded that Tanzania's October election fell short of regional democratic standards. Observers covering 27 of 31 regions, reported that voters could not freely express their will. The mission cited opposition repression, internet shutdowns, and media bias. Major rivals like Tundu Lissu were detained or disqualified, rallies banned, and ballot boxes allegedly pre-filled in opposition areas. SADC noted President Samia Suluhu Hassan's victory and an 87% turnout raised serious questions. Tanzania's constitution bars courts from hearing presidential challenges, violating SADC principles. Observers faced harassment and some passports were seized. The mission urged calm, warning against violence, and called for an independent audit of the results. It plans a final report after the inauguration and said SADC heads of state could decide in 2026 whether to impose restrictions or reforms. This marks only the second time SADC has openly deemed a member election below its own standards. Due to internet restrictions, most Tanzanians are learning of the verdict from smuggled documents or foreign broadcasts. However, as of this morning, the internet has been open. Cameroon's opposition leader, Issa Shiroma Bakari, has reportedly fled to Nigeria amid violent post-election protests and threats of prosecution. Sources say he crossed through Yola before being airlifted to an undisclosed location. His home in Garoua has reportedly been protected by residents, while another opposition figure was arrested in Douala. Bakari claims he won October 12's election with 54.8% of votes against President Biya's 53.7%. But official results gave him 35.2. At least 4 people have died in clashes since the disputed poll. UN human rights officials condemned the repression and urged restraint from both protesters and security forces, demanding impartial investigations into deaths and abuses. France echoed calls for the release of those arbitrarily detained, stressing respect for democracy and the rule of law. Reports suggest opposition groups plan fresh nationwide protests rejecting the results. Despite government denials, rights advocates warn of escalating violence as tensions continue to rise, and this is following the disputed election outcome. Moving on. The head of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Mirjana Spolarik, says history is repeating in Sudan's Darfur region after reports of mass killings during the Rapid Support Forces capture of Al-Fashir. The RSF's takeover of the army's last holdout gives it control over a quarter of Sudan. The UN says hundreds were killed as fighters separated men from women before shootings began. The RSF denies targeting civilians. Now, Spolarik says the situation is horrific, saying tens of thousands fled and many more remain trapped without food or medical aid. She voiced concern about reports of a massacre at the Saudi hospital. The ICRC said people escaping Tawila are collapsing from exhaustion and wounds. Over 70,000 have fled since October 26, while about 200,000 remain missing. Now, she urged foreign backers to restrain warring sides. Rights groups accused the RSF of genocide, which it denies. She warned that modern warfare, especially drone use, is making conflicts deadlier and leaving nowhere safe anymore. The last of our top stories. After the murder of her pregnant 19-year-old relative in 2020, South African developer Leonora Tima created Grit, a mobile app using artificial intelligence to help victims of gender-based violence. Supported by Mozilla, the Gates Foundation, and the Patrick McGovern Foundation, Grit features Zuzi, an AI chatbot described as a warm aunt figure. The app records audio when users press a help button, alerting a rapid response center that dispatches aid. It also includes a secure quote-unquote vault for users to store photos, screenshots, and recordings as legal evidence. Leonora's team interviewed over 800 Cape Town residents about barriers to reporting abuse and found many mistrusted police or faced defamation threats for posting online. Grit now has 13,000 users and logged 10,000 help requests in September. Leonora says the app's goal is to restore control and trust for victims often failed by institutions. While activists praise the innovation, they caution AI tools cannot replace the empathy provided by human counselors and trained professionals. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we'll be talking to Talent Gore as she delivers the Zimbabwe report. But prior to that, It's the weather. All right, it's time for us to talk to Talent Gore as she delivers the Zimbabwe report. Talent, what can I say?
Tamka edukana mamkase Africa.
Tamuka Hedu. Now, Walter Magaya, an alleged prophet, has been arrested on rape and fraud charges, and I understand he is the founder of Prophetic Healing and Deliverance Ministries.
Yes, the founder of the Prophetic Healing and Deliverance Ministries, PhD, Walter Magaya, was arrested on Saturday on rape and fraud charges, the police has said. The 41-year-old self-styled prophet was seized from his church offices in Harare by a team of detectives who arrived in several unmarked vehicles. Police spokesperson Commissioner Ponyati said the Zimbabwe police confirms the arrest of church leader Walter Magaya in connection with several reports of rape and fraud. The suspect was arrested on Saturday. Rape allegations have long stalked Magaya after several female members of his church reported to the Gender Commission when it launched its own investigations into the rape allegations, but the findings were never publicly shared. His church alleged a history of abuse, but police have never acted. There have been reports in his church of people who came forward citing rape allegations, but nothing had ever been done. But so he was arrested on Saturday, and yesterday he went to court, and the magistrate who was presiding over the case refused to grant him bail. He's also being charged with his wife. His wife is being charged with fraud allegations. Apparently, the couple duped people from the church monies which are totaling to approximately 50,000 USD. They were saying that they are selling stands, so they collected money from their church members, but the church members, they never got those stands, so they were arrested. And yesterday, the magistrate refused to give them bail, so they are going to be back in court again today. Yesterday, they were remanded on custody. So they're going to be back in court again today, where the magistrate will also hear, because the defense is actually fighting for them to be granted bail. So they're going to be in court again today for bail hearing.
All right, Talent, we'll certainly be looking forward to an update on that story. But let's head into something economic. Carlsberg has partnered with Varun Beverages to enter the Zimbabwe beer market.
Yes, Zimbabwe, sorry, Finnish beer giant Carlsberg is entering the Zimbabwean market through a partnership with Beverages Zimbabwe, the local bottler of Pepsi products, in a move set to make the country a hub for beer exports. Beverages Zimbabwe, a subsidiary of India's Varun Beverages Limited, has signed a landmark sales and distribution agreement with Carlsberg for the African market, with Zimbabwe leading the first phase of the rollout. Varun Beverages Zimbabwe CEO said the deal marks the first in a broader strategy that will see local beer production under the Carlsberg brand. The partnership will initially focus on importing and distributing Carlsberg beers before moving to local production, a shift expected to boost industrial capacity and create new jobs in the beverages sector. The deals on Varun's growing footprint in Zimbabwe, where it has invested heavily uh, in beverage production since 2018. The company completed a 20 million United States expansion last year, adding new production lines for carbonated drinks and bottled water at its Harare plant. Varun Beverages currently produces and distributes Pepsi, 7 Up, Mirinda, Mountain Dew, Tropicana juices, Gatorade, Sting energy drinks, Krimbel milkshakes, Lipton iced tea, and Aquafina bottled water in Zimbabwe. This is quite a big step for Varun Beverages.
All right, talent, I'll see if they tempt me to move away from my beloved Zambezi lager. Moving on, staying with economy, the government has scrapped 11 license requirements to boost ease of doing business.
Yes, the Zimbabwean government has scrapped 11 license requirements and consolidated fragmented local authority permits into a single unit license as part of broader reforms to enhance the ease of doing business. Well, this was said by the Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion Minister, Professor Mthuli Ncube. The development, he said, is designed to simplify regulatory processes for small and medium enterprises and formal businesses that operate under one roof with multiple lines: bakeries, butcheries, restaurants, takeaways, and food factories. Previously, some businesses were paying as much as 2,300 for a food factory license alone. He said the reforms aim to remove duplication and streamline approvals, particularly within the retail sector, one of Zimbabwe's fastest growing industries. Under the new system, local authorities will apply a scale license fee structure capped at 500 United States dollars, allowing smaller businesses to pay less while promoting formalization and growth of SMEs. Among the major reforms, bottle store licenses are no longer required for bottle stores operating within licensed retail shops. Retail and wholesale licenses will now be combined into a single license for shops conducting both operations. So this is quite a step when it comes to small and medium enterprises in Zimbabwe, because you find out that those small and medium enterprises, if they had different kinds of businesses operating in their shops, they were required to have one license for each. For example, if they had a bakery, if they had a restaurant, if they had a bottle store, they were required to have a license for each of those businesses. So right now, they'll just be required to have one license, which is going to promote the small and medium enterprises sector. So this is a good thing when it comes to those within that line of business.
All right, talent. It seems like the money is paying off with regards to Scotland FC, because they made history with their first PSL title in their debut season in the Zimbabwe Premier League.
Yes, well, Scotland, if you remember very well, I think I did a story on when they joined the Premier League. But Scotland Football Club had just done what few dared imagine. They won the Castle League Premier. The Castle Lager Premier Soccer League title in their very first season. Their 5-1 United at Ascot Stadium on Sunday not only sealed the championship with 2 games to spare, but also carved their name into Zimbabwean football folklore. The storm that broke moments after full time only seemed to bless the scene. Founded barely 2 years ago in Maputo, Scotland came into the league turbocharged with their owner, Scott Sakukanya's millions. Sakukanya brought out his checkbook and signed seasoned names such as Kama Billiard, Peter Mbu, Knowledge Musona, and Ronald Pfumvudzai, who were molded by Niraya's discipline. Was the coach disciplined touchline presence as they hunted down early season pace setters Moors and later Zimbabwe. From a township dream to the summit of Zimbabwean football, Scotland's rise has been swift, improbable, and now undeniable. Even though the owner of the football club is a ZANU-PF member of parliament for Mavuku, Scotland, Scott Sapukanya, some have alleged that there have been allegations of rigging within the football space. Some are saying that Scott Sakupkanya used his money to ensure that he wins the Premier League title. But right now, no one has doubted that they have made history as the first football club which came just 2 years ago, which has won the league title. So it is it is something that is big for the team itself, as it has made history to remain in Zimbabwean football folklore for quite a long time.
I hear you, Talent, and I'm not sure if you had mentioned it, but let's not forget Black Rhinos FC, which also managed the same feat, but with less money. Thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good having Talent Gore break down the latest news stemming from the next door neighbors, Zimbabwe. We're going to take a quick break before we continue into economic news. Let's get into the economic news on AGM. World Bank arm expands local currency lending across Africa. Yes, this is the International Finance Corporation, IFC, the private investment arm of the World Bank, expanding its local currency lending and direct investments in African companies to help projects reach the size needed to attract global investors. Speaking at the Africa Financial Summit in Casablanca, IFC Managing Director Maktar Diop said major investors prefer large-scale projects, noting that when we have assets of less than $1 billion, it doesn't interest them. Diop emphasized that deeper market integration and interoperable stock exchanges could mobilize savings and attract long-term investment. With developed nations cutting aid and concessional financing tightening, developing economies are seeking more private capital. Local currency lending, already making up about 30% of IFC's portfolio, is seen as a safeguard against currency volatility. Last year, Africa accounted for over $15 billion of IFC commitments, mainly in debt and trade finance. The IFC also plans to collaborate with commercial banks to exchange dollar resources for local currency lines, aiming to boost financial stability and support regional market development. And in the last of our economic news stories, which is the last of our stories today, we are talking about Ghana's legal move to protect kente. This is the kente cloth. Ghana has taken a landmark step to protect its famed hand-woven kente fabric by pursuing stronger intellectual property rights and geographical indication status. This bold decision has sparked global debate about cultural ownership in fashion, where African motifs have long influenced major designers without acknowledgement or benefit to their origins. Kente, renowned for its bold patterns and symbolism, was listed by UNESCO in December 2024 as part of humanity's intangible cultural heritage. The new claim aims to ensure that all commercial uses abroad recognize its Ghanaian origin and potentially pay royalties to local weavers. If successful, it could become Africa's first textile with broad international protection under WIPO and WTO frameworks. Ghana's move challenges fashion houses to adopt ethical sourcing and co-branding practices similar to those protecting champagne. And while some fear it may stifle creativity, others hail it as long overdue justice. The initiative could inspire other African nations to protect cultural crafts like Aso, Oke, Adire, and the Maasai beadwork. Those have been our stories on Africa Good Morning. Thank you very much for joining us on ntvafrica.my.na, DSTV 285, GoTV 25, and NTV Africa on YouTube. That's Africa with a K. We'll be back tomorrow with updates from Botswana and, of course, the latest headlines from broader Africa. From me, Ashwin Berry, and the Africa Good Morning team, have a wonderful day. Swera Zakanaka.